Disrupting the drift is a phrase this week's guest uses to highlight the importance of thinking more deeply about life and business rather than just going with the flow. He definitely helped me disrupt the drift in my own world. Maybe he can have the same impact on you too. I never realized there were so many similarities between the worlds of yoga and sales leadership. You're going to love Baron and his contrarian takes on important leadership topics like vulnerability, authenticity, responsibility, and conflict. And if you're looking for ideas on how to create a stronger community, clean up your messes, or better navigate the valley of tears in this difficult business, take a listen. Oh yeah, please let us know you're out there. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, comment, like, and repost on LinkedIn. Let's go. Welcome to Coach2Scale, how modern leaders build coaching cultures. I'm your host, Matt Benelli. Join me as we build a community of like-minded professionals who share the belief that effective coaching improves the performance of every team member. Our mission is to help leaders become better coaches. The Coach2Scale podcast is sponsored by Coachum, the world's first AI coaching execution platform that leverages evidence-based coaching to increase quota attainment. And with that, let's get started. Today's guest can always be counted on keeping it real and offering against the grain, common sense perspective on today's culture, mental fitness, and what it takes to show up authentically. He's the son of two of America's yoga pioneers. He began to seriously study yoga at age 12 and trained extensively in all the major traditions before creating Baptiste Power Vinyasa Yoga in the mid-90s. He's trained celebrities, business leaders, and athletes. In fact, for 4 years, he was peak performance specialist for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not my favorite team, but a professional, successful team nonetheless. He also undoubtedly coached and trained countless salespeople directly and indirectly. And in the sales profession, where mindset, consistency, and technique all matter so much, I can't think of a better external guest to our industry to have on today. He's a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestselling author who's published 6 books that in some way, shape, or form talk about how to improve your mindset, your consistency, and technique, no matter what field you are in. He's the founder of Baptiste Power Vinyasa Yoga. He's the host of the Disrupt the Drift podcast. Baron Baptiste, welcome to Coach2Scale.
Yeah, really good to be here with you, Matt. I appreciate it. And everything we do in life, we're selling something. We're a walking sales pitch for one thing or other, whether we're aware of it or not, right?
Well, you're endearing yourself to this audience with that quote, right? Nothing happens until somebody sells something. So yeah, we are, and unfortunately, the profession has gotten marred and has a negative connotation sometimes. And this podcast and the people that listen to it are really trying to change that for the better. And you can certainly help us do that today. So thank you.
Yeah, good.
So Baron, when it comes to coaching, you've coached people, thousands of people all over the world. What's a myth you frequently encounter that you believe is either misguided or maybe even complete BS?
Oh yeah, I think a coach, a lot of times people think that a coach is going to fix their lives or fix their problems. And it's not like that. I think that would be the myth. And what it really is, I think if you have a coach that's worth their weight, they're gonna need you to match their commitment. And a great coach just gets you clear on what you need to do, what you want to do, who you want to become, what you want to accomplish, and then support you in executing that in your life. Yeah.
So Baron, what do you mean match their commitment?
Yeah. So I think part where the myth comes in is people often, a default mindset for a lot of people is that, well, if I just get with this coach, they're going to help me fix my life. Now, maybe they'll help you or it can support you and getting clear on what needs to be fixed or what needs to be redirected or what needs to be let go of and what direction to take. But really, the commitment, so matching a coach's commitment means, well, you're hungry enough, you're thirsty enough to really do the work, to really make the change. where the rubber meets the road. And so, it's one thing to get clarity, but then the next thing is to have to go and do it, make it real, take action, action it so that you're moving the needle in your life. And I think the commitment piece is, people can show up. Well, again, the myth part that someone's going to fix me or save me, again, it comes back to this default that people have that they're looking for the next savior and that the coach is going to save them somehow or
Yeah.
again, fix them. But I think it really comes down to the person has to really want it and they have to be coachable. And part of being, in working, you mentioned, I spent 5 years working on the coaching staff with the Philadelphia Eagles. And what I learned in coaching is that, you can, I'm witnessing the best coaches in the world, working with the best high level athletes in the world. The higher level athletes really took the coaching in real time and executed that coaching. And that's where you see these athletes that really they're matching the coach's commitment in up leveling, in refining, in evolving their technique, their approach. They're taking the learning and making it happen in real time and always upping their game. So I think that's does that make sense? What I mean about matching the commitment?
Yeah. A
Yeah.
way it's been discussed um, in the past, like with other folks, let's say on this show, that I thought was really cool is, and I'll quote a famous college basketball coach, Pat Summitt, who's deceased. And she said something to the effect of, I can coach up your skills. I can turn you from a good basketball player to an excellent basketball player. But I can't start your engine for you.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to show up with
Yeah.
that commitment. And I thought that's exactly what you're saying is you could have the best coach, but if the student's not there,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah. If the coachee, the student is okay, kind of leaning back in their chair with their arms crossed. Okay, fix me. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That won't work. You have to really want it and be ready for it and then execute on it, especially if it scares you or especially if it means confronting your ego or pride about uh well, the common thing is I've always done it this way and this has worked for me. But I think having a growth mindset and the commitment to keep growing uh, means, well, you're letting go, you're trying on new things and not just trying them on, but wearing them and doing them, actioning them forward, because that's where it's going to make a difference with in real situations with real people. And kind of end of story. You've got to execute what you're getting from your coach. And that to me demonstrates the commitment on the side of the student or coachee. Yeah.
And so, Baron, what are the similarities that you have observed between the yoga community and your experience in working in the, that more outside business world? I mean, you've taught
Business
your,
with
yeah.
entrepreneurs. Yeah. 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 The similarities. Is that what you're
Yeah. So the similarities, because, look,
yeah.
some people, let's face it, some people might be like, Wow, Baron Baptiste, I kinda know that name. He's,
Yeah. Yeah.
huge in the yoga world, but
Yeah.
what are we talking about here?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so yeah, at heart, I'm an entrepreneur and I always have been. And I think that what I've learned in my own experience of running and operating businesses, whether it's studios on the ground, brick and mortar, or running more of an enterprise where we've got 200 plus affiliate studios and lots of trainers and leading trainings and certification courses. I think I'll point to the positive first. So you get business people or entrepreneurs, or you could say salespeople that are excited and they want to make it happen. And they're getting into something. So I'm speaking more to like newer people that maybe don't yet have the experience. they're excited, they're enthusiastic, they're ready to take on this new vision and goal, and but they here's the negative side. They don't know what it takes. It and so they get into, this new enterprise or this new vision or project, and when the boots are on the ground, they don't realize what it takes. And what it takes at heart is it takes grit, it takes consistency, it takes commitment, because it's not all, roses and bubble gum. And so take taking the path that may be challenging, but if you want to be excellent in what you do, you have to have that commitment and to go through the valley of tears and and have something in you that keeps pulling you forward so you don't quit. But I think the commonality between yoga people and newer entrepreneurs or business people often is the practicals, the looking at, well, the financials, knowing what it takes on the business front, knowing what it takes, and you learn by doing, right? That's where you get the knowing, is you learn by doing, you learn from making mistakes. But again, your commitment is, you've got to be present to the practical side of things, and what it takes is, you got to be related to your numbers financially. You've got to be related to, you have your communal environment, the community or the clients, that they're having an extraordinary or phenomenal experience with you and your business. Another part is the delivery, like being whatever the delivery of the product. So whatever your product offering is, and maybe part of the delivery is selling that product or enrolling people into that product. What it takes there. What it takes to be a leader, and being responsible for having the best product in the world, and being clear on your delivery, and what the why in there. Like, why should someone participate with your product, or why should someone buy your product? And that you have a mastery in the delivery of what you're providing or what you're selling. And there's the community, that of whether clients or if you're running your teams, being responsible for the people and that communal environment. And the bottom line is their experience in working with you, for you, and being related to the practical side, the numbers, uh, and also just all the admin stuff that comes along with it. Being skillful at seeing what do you need to hand over to other people versus doing it all yourself, and being clear on, okay, here's the vision, the goal of what I want to provide. And I would say putting people first, and your product, it's almost like the front and back of your hand. You've got the front of your hand always, you always have a back of a hand. Your product and your people go hand in hand. So you really have to be powerful in that, and be about excellence with people and the product, always developing the product, and then also providing the best product in the world, and then having your people enrolled into that vision, and then having the practical side, the admin side, the financial side, all in order, and being responsible for all of it. And I think that's a common theme with yoga people, and in running and operating yoga studios, yoga businesses, as well as business people. It's like being responsible for all of it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you use the word there, and I want to just click into a little bit. You use the word community,
Yeah.
and I'm going to use the word community and culture it's in almost in the same
Yeah.
vein here.
Yeah.
As someone who has had thousands of students and hundreds of affiliates around the world, how important is community and culture and being part of something, i.e., being part of Baptiste Yoga, for example? How
Yeah,
important is that
yeah,
brand?
yeah. Well, community is really everything. It really starts there because that becomes, those are the people that speak about your product. They speak about, um, what you do in the world, and they become, um, it's like the, let's say, the leader of your business, and then the leader to the community, or leader to one person, and then that one person communicates to all the other people, and then all the other people in your community are speaking to each other, and that's what really creates energy. And you could bring it down to, like, if you just, your clients are your community, they're a group, you could say, and those people are your reputation. Those people are the dissemination of your product out into the world beyond you. And maybe they're just talking about you and your product, but it goes beyond you just telling them about your product. And now they're telling each other about your product. So if you have a community that's really been impacted in positive ways by your product, and who you are, uh, as in the relationship or relational sense, they sense that you're about them being empowered, them having the best life, them having the best experience using your product. That takes something. But really, the community is where it goes from just you to others, and where it really grows out into the world. And it's what makes you known. If you're not known, then someone else in your industry will be. And it's like that. So if they don't know you, they can't buy from you, they can't participate with you. But it's really through others that, um, in running my institute, and from a business sense, like, we never, over 25 years, we never did paid marketing. We never did paid advertising. It was always grassroots, on the ground, organic growth. And that growth all happened through community. It's an easy one to miss. If you're a salesperson and you're just more transactional, you're missing an opportunity. You want to
Well,
be relational and get into people's worlds of, well, what do people need, and what are they looking for, and what makes them feel that you're providing something that is enhancing their life or business or whatever the thing. Yeah.
and oftentimes that I get, well, call it that first line manager. He or she is responsible for bringing on board these salespeople and influencing how they show up to their
Yeah.
clients and prospects. I don't know if something comes to mind here, but is there something that you've seen done in your community where like that someone has done? Maybe a, I don't know, a studio owner. I'm not sure who, but something that they've done on the ground in their area to build that community to attract people into their web, into their world.
Yeah. So, creating experiences where people can come together, and you could do that whether that's online or you do that in person, but you create experiences where two things. If you have, like, say, a brick and mortar, you can bring people together that in ways that create community. So people get to know each other. People are sharing what they're up to. People are sharing where they're stuck, or where they're struggling, or where they're grappling with things. And in that community, they get support, they get empowerment, they get elevated through having that kind of sense of community. But it's creating platforms or environments where people get to engage with each other, that is elevating their lives beyond just your product. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think, the provider. So if you're the retailer, you are, let's say, yeah, a yoga studio location, or you're selling some kind of product. I think having in the background where you're coming from generosity and real care. So what I mean by generosity is people really sense that you are giving them and providing things to them that are unique and extraordinary. I travel, a lot. I used to like to stay in Four Seasons hotels, Four Seasons resorts. And when I would go into a Four Seasons, if I needed something, or they would go out of their way to just provide the service to fulfill on what I needed, and often with no charge. Now I'm already paying something for that service, level of
Sure.
service, but let's say you're not being paid for it, but you're still coming from that kind of generosity to serve, to support, to help in whether that's connecting one client to other clients who might be able to support them, or whatever that looks like. But people get from you an access to something greater than even just your product provides. That typically starts generating community, and naturally, organically, people start supporting each other, in a spirit of generosity.
Yeah.
And I think that starts with the leader or the salesperson or whoever's at the front lines. It really starts with them. The default is to be transactional. Okay.
Right.
You pay me something, I'll give you a product or something, and then move on to the next client. But I think right there, you're sabotaging your ability to really grow something that is beyond the usual. Yeah.
And I love the Four Seasons example and how
Yeah.
it ties back to the word generosity, because look, in our world, generosity could be, I'm going to give you my product at a lower price. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Instead of a
Yeah.
$25 day pass to yoga, I'm going
Yeah.
to give it to you for $10, right? You're
Yeah.
devaluing what you do.
Yeah.
Instead, what
Yeah.
you're talking about is give more, give them something that they're
Yeah.
not going to get somewhere else, like
Yeah.
Four Seasons does.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't discount their rooms
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No,
Um,
they don't give a discount. They don't devalue their product, but they provide something extraordinary in the realm of service, and just kind of the way those the staff at a Four Seasons is just there ready to support you, help you in simple ways, but it starts impacting you in a way that, wow, I really feel taken care of here. I feel like they really have my best interest in having the best possible experience. Yeah, and people feel that, and that's more of the on the invisible realm, than just, again, the visible or transactional as well.
brings up that I think it's Maya Angelou quote. It's not people don't remember what you know; they remember how you made them feel.
Oh yeah.
Um, Baron, in your book, one of your books, you talk about the importance of being a yes, being a yes. What does that mean? And maybe what does that not mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Well, it does not mean saying yes to everything and everyone all of the time. Wasn't there a Jim Carrey movie about that where, yeah, that he had to say yes to everything. It's not that, really, it's being a yes for what is most important to you, like what matters most, with your values, with your mission, with your vision. It's being a yes for those things, but it also translates into the people that you're working with, that you're, maybe, again, your clients, your community, your teams, you're a yes for everyone winning. You're a yes for people getting what is important to them, people getting what matters most to them in their shared experience with you, or in the use of your product. So I think it comes down to being a yes. You're saying no to the things that really aren't so important. And you're really a yes for what matters and makes a difference, what moves the needle for others. Yeah.
Well, in the sales management community, one of the biggest challenges is time management, priority management. So that that being a yes and understanding what it is and what it isn't
Yeah.
I think super helpful, free up some time to focus on the right priorities.
Yeah, that's well said as well in a really practical way. You're saying yes to your priorities. And you're a no, every yes has a no. But when you're a yes for your priorities and you start, then you're inherently a no for those things that aren't a priority. And maybe that means your hand, things that you don't just go away. Maybe it's admin stuff. Maybe it's stuff that's less important. If you're a yes for your client and that is going to take time, your time and energy, your attention, you're saying no to doing certain things that distract you from that. Like maybe you hire a personal assistant or you hand it off to other team members or things that are in your way so that you're really focused on that top, I'll call it 20% of what's most
Mhm.
important, and you start getting uh you're less distracted with all the other stuff. That sums up being a yes. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask you another question, and it's coming from your book, Being a Power,
Yeah.
and we'll put a link in the show notes. You have I have, I think, all of your 6 books because my wife's been affiliated with you and your institute for, I think, 12 years now.
Yeah.
She had a memory on Facebook today that
Yeah.
12 years ago she went through your level 1 Baptiste training. Um, but in Being of Power, you talk about the importance of cleaning up the messes. Now I'm gonna
Yeah.
lead the witness here a little bit.
Yeah.
Cleaning up the messes. What is that? Can you elaborate on what that means and why it's important? And then I'm just going to throw this little nugget out there. A lot of times as sales leaders, we don't confront what's difficult.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of reasons why, but that's the reason I think I am asking you that question is because I think sometimes we hold back on the mess. Why is it important to
Yeah.
clean up the mess?
Yeah. Yeah, it's cleaning up the messes. So that's a messy job, and it's not perfect, and you're not going to clean up every mess. But I think again, it fits inside of what you're a yes for. So it could be just like the people closest to you in your life, like just starting there, and that could be your own family. It could be your teams that you work with. It could be clients. uh a mess is like if you're not keeping your word to something. You say you're going to do something and you don't do it, or you say you'll be somewhere at a certain time and you're not there. Now, default way of handling that mess is just kind of ignoring it or not really taking responsibility for it. But I think going to someone, and it could be a coworker, someone on your team where you've got some disagreement, something happened, someone lost their patience, someone was did something they shouldn't have done or said something they shouldn't have said, and it you done or said something they shouldn't have said, and have a real conversation, just own it, take responsibility for, and it clears something from the air, rather than glossing over it, drifting along, pretending it didn't happen, or but there's still some vomit in the space. But I think it goes a long way because we all are going to mess up. But when those relationships that are important to us, to just press the pause button, clean them up, get this, whatever is in the air, whatever is between the two people, get you be the person, the bigger person that goes and cleans that up. And it removes something from the space. It removes something from the environment. It removes something from the relationship that you can then move forward on a clear trajectory without carrying all that baggage or weirdness forward. No, you totally clean up your own messes. I think, we make promises to ourselves and we don't keep them. We say we're going to do something. Maybe that's, you're going to stop eating certain foods, or you're going to go to the gym or yoga class, or do something that you don't do. You say you're going to do something and you don't do that. And that undermines your own confidence. That cuts off confidence in yourself. So I think cleaning it up with yourself, Yeah, and even you reacted badly to someone in your life, maybe a client or someone you're close to, could be a kid, your a son, a daughter. Could you there's one aspect where you go and clean it up with the person, but really it starts with yourself. So you can beat yourself up about it, or you can just stuff it aside, ignore it. But I think to clean it up with yourself, acknowledge it, tell the truth on yourself, just to yourself, that, oh, yeah, I messed up. And then if it involves someone else, then you go clean it up with them. But I think there is something that about cleaning up our own messes for
Mm.
sure. It's important that then frees us up to move forward in confidence and with momentum.
Well, you said, stop eating foods you shouldn't eat, go to the gym and go to yoga. There's a few messes I got to clean up right there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Baron, many leaders in our world here, many sales leaders, especially but not limited to newer ones, feel they need to have all the answers. So when they're asked a question, even if they don't really know the answer,
Yeah.
they pretend because they
Yeah.
feel like they have to know all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your thought? Is that healthy?
Oh, yeah, that's the worst. It's it doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for the person pretending to know the answers, or and it doesn't work for the people around them. And at a certain point, it just by default creates problems. I was talking to someone just the other day that in their company they were dealing with a real conflict, like an issue, a problem, and one of the people on the team was just certain and knew the answers. And apparently, this person always operates out of certainty and they know the answers. But when you dig deeper, they actually don't. And so sometimes it's unconscious. Like my sense of that person was they're not conscious to doing that. And then other times people are pretending. They pretend they know the answers, or they know what they're even doing in their jobs when they don't. And they know they're pretending, they know they're faking it. But then, but people start to smell that, and it reeks of an inauthenticity. And I think that's the opportunity where, you start dropping those masks or those fronts, and it's an opportunity to tap other leadership. So it kind of falls into, there's a time to lead and be in charge and have the answers. And then if you really don't know the answers, the ability to follow in a sense of just saying, I don't know. And you start letting other people be in a seat of leading or leadership where you're tapping their knowledge, their awareness. You actually, when you stop pretending having all the answers, you start seeing how other people around you are actually pretty smart and maybe have
Mm.
experience in an area that you don't have. But then it's an opportunity for not only discovering other people's capacities and competencies and skill sets, but you also then are in your own learning. You're discovering, you're learning, and you're up to a bigger game than just trying to look smart, look good, look confident, when in fact, inwardly, you are insecure and you just want to be seen in a certain light. And you're spending all your energy managing perceptions. Clients smell that, your teammates smell it. That's a losing game. Yeah.
And I'm just so many nuggets here. I'm just jotting down notes left and right. And a lot of what you're getting to, I think, ties back to what you've talked about a lot about vulnerability and authenticity. And
Yeah.
in their private lives, someone who doesn't know something might say, "Dude, I don't know. Like, why are you asking me?" Like, or but hey, maybe I don't know, but I'm gonna go find out. Or hey, like you do this, I'll do that. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
And I think that like it builds a bond. I mean, how does being vulnerable um, build trust? How does being vulnerable and authentic build trust with a team?
Yeah, no, it's good. And I think I like to hold vulnerability and authenticity in two, like they're two different domains, you could say. Vulnerability requires, well, if you look up the word vulnerability in the dictionary, it will say something to the effect of open to attack, open to harm. You know, if something or someone's vulnerable, they are exposed, right? And so it takes some courage to expose yourself, expose your weaknesses, expose your flaws. And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. It can be as simple as I don't know, but it takes courage to confront that, especially if you've been kind of wearing that mask of being the know-it-all or having all the answers or being the smart one in the room. By being vulnerable and just saying I don't know, it that takes some courage. You have to draw forth some inner strength to confront that. Authenticity is where you're pretending or you're hiding something, and you start just revealing that just to yourself, but you start recognizing, oh yeah, I've been pretending, I've been and maybe with others there's a recognition and acknowledgement of where you've been inauthentic, like you've been pretending, and now you say how it really is. You get power from that, but you get something more when you're being authentic. You get a world of possibilities open up, like a whole
All right.
realm of possibilities open up that weren't available to you prior when you were being more inauthentic. When someone's being inauthentic, again, people smell that. They may not be able to pinpoint it, but they sense there's some faking going on, some pretending. That person's something else is going on. What they're saying and what they're doing and who they're being isn't matching up. It's not meeting the smell test.
Interesting.
Vulnerability is just opening yourself up to exposure, but it doesn't necessarily open up a realm of possibilities. But it opens up one possibility, which is now you can be authentic,
Mm.
be
I,
yourself, be true. Yeah.
and I reached out to some people in my community that are also in your community. And I said, hey, I'm going to be interviewing Baron. What's a question you think I should ask? So I have one of them, and I'm going
Okay.
to look, I'm just going to, because it's tied to this. So I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I'm going to read it basically the same verbatim.
Yeah.
And it's this. I think one of the things that's always helpful to hear from folks like Baron is the line between vulnerability and authenticity in leading and too much information versus lack of being professional. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you touch on that? Because what she goes on to write here, her name's Rachel. She says, I think it's helpful for folks to hear how they can be themselves as a leader, but do it in a way that is still context dependent in a work environment with clients, etc. And she goes on to say, I find that Gen Z really struggles with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like spilling too much information. And I
Yeah.
think that's, it's somewhat intuitive and being sensible. Like what yeah, if you go to a yoga class or you have some leader that's telling too much of their whole personal story, it just lands like too much. And people don't need to hear all that. But if you look from what if I shared about myself that could make a difference for someone else? So it's like you're taking yourself off the pedestal. You are saying how you're real, you struggle with certain things, and it's like what do you want to leave people with that could actually make a difference for them? If you're just spilling your guts, venting all your traumas and all your you know things about yourself, it's just too much. It's vomit in the space again. And I think that there's also an awareness of like the environment you're in. And so if it's in a professional setting, what do you reveal about an inauthenticity that would be meaningful to others? So they get the lesson in there, they get the principle in there, they get the distinction in there. um, it was like I shared with you, well, earlier we were talking something about, um, like being true to, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. So maybe I'm grappling with, okay, I'm not eating, there's certain foods I said I'm not going to eat, and I eat those. Now that's a pretty simple example, but it could be um, something like I overreact to things, and I see that overreaction is doesn't serve me and who I want to be for others or who I want to be for myself. I see that, yeah, I overreact. Like I'm driving in traffic, I overreact, or I overreact under deadlines. And if there's a project deadline, and then I get stressed, and then I'm overreacting, and then everyone feels that around me, and that's not who I want to be for myself. It's not who I want to be for others. It's like in that there's an opportunity for people to recognize, you're kicking the pedestal out from underneath you and you're saying, well, I'm not perfect. When you're a leader, people just naturally inherently put you up on a pedestal and they see you in a certain light, that you have it all together. You've got all the, wisdom. But I think when you're being authentic like that and just giving people an insight into your life and what you're learning and what you're discovering for yourself in a way that's practical for them and appropriate to the environment you're in, I think that has a lot of value of humanizing you and making you real and relatable to others. And that ensues trust. That builds trust with people.
Yeah. I I think the phrase that comes to mind is, to borrow a phrase from you, perfectly imperfect. And when you
Yeah.
can show people
Yeah.
that you're that way, you build that trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So powerful. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that and answering that question.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that, you know, as we've gone, my partners, our company, we've gone around the world for the past 10 plus years, working with sales leaders. And we ask a question all the time, something along the lines of, what is the hardest thing for you to do? What is the biggest challenge in your role, whether you're brand new to it or you've been doing it for a while? And to paraphrase the answer, it comes down to accountability. And people just struggle to hold other people accountable. Baron, why is it so hard for leaders to hold people accountable? And is there some payoff for them that, that
Yeah.
we don't know about?
Yeah, definitely. There's a payoff. They get something. It could be around, you have too much concern of what people think of you and having people like you, and not wanting to ruffle the feathers in that way. So you're managing perception. So you don't want to hold people to account for their whatever, their jobs, their roles, their performance, their quotas, because you just want to be the nice guy and be liked. That's a common default. Another payoff that leaders get by not holding people to account is that they don't have to hold themselves to account. So the payoff there is, I'm not going to hold, if I don't hold them responsible, then I don't have to be responsible. And we can all kind of be off the hook and drift along. And I think those two things are connected, because if you're not holding people accountable because you don't have to hold yourself accountable, well, right there you're creating a culture of non-accountability.
Do you So when you say that, makes
Yeah.
100% sense.
Yeah.
But my personal feeling on that is that people don't, like, leaders don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm not going to hold, Matt and Baron and so and so accountable because I don't want to be accountable. It's not a conscious
Yeah.
decision. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? It doesn't matter. I'd be curious what you think. But,
Yeah.
if not, if they don't do that, if it's not conscious, what is it?
Yeah, it's typically probably not conscious. It's not intentional, but that's what I would call the drift. You're drifting along, and then maybe you're on with your employee or team member who's not, measuring up, not holding the standards. And then you're on a call with them and you're like, oh, well, this isn't a good time to have this conversation. I'll look for a better time. Or, but really it it has to be brought from non-intentional and taking out all your reasons and excuses. And you need to be someone who, again, be authentic, come from supporting and empowering people. If they're not measuring up, see, is it a matter of training and development? Is it a matter of putting them in a different seat on the bus, so to speak? Maybe they're the right person for your team, but they're in the wrong
Yeah.
role, the wrong post.
They should
So
be on the bus, but in a different seat.
yeah, and then some people just need to be removed from the bus. They just don't belong. But if you don't really confront those conversations and of accountability, you don't really get to know your people, and you don't get to develop your people. And I think in a culture of accountability, people actually want to be held accountable. They actually want to keep growing and learning. So if you're that kind of coach or mentor or boss, you're someone who is actually, by holding people accountable and you being responsible for that, you're actually giving people what they want and you're getting what you want because you're playing an elevated game.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, that's awesome, especially when you tie it back to it. Everyone gets something out of it because we're playing
Yeah.
an elevated game.
Yeah. And
Uh,
everybody wants to be in a winning game. Yeah.
a- and you've mentioned a bunch of times that you're not the guru, you're not perfect, right? I'm assuming you've learned a lot over the years running your institute, being an entrepreneur, working with so many people. What's a painful lesson you learned along the way that's shaped who you are today?
Yeah. Two things come to mind. One is, yeah, being if you're the leader, and again, people just by default put you on a pedestal. And I think to be the painful mistake is not being responsible for that. What I mean by that is not kicking out, not humanizing yourself, not kicking out, the pedestal from underneath your feet, or not having people around you that kick the pedestal out, people you trust that support you and support the bigger mission or vision for what you're up to. So part of the painful lesson is having too many yes people around me, or having people that aren't playing the same game, so to speak. And another lesson that kind of ties into that painful lesson is, I think as a leader and at any capacity, you need to be, how do I want to say this? You need to be responsible for um, the happenings in your business. And maybe you are an employee, you're part of a team. So you have your post and you have your hat that you wear and the tasks in there, but being responsible for it in a way that when you pass off things to others, you still have a happening, a sense of what's happening. I'll give you an example. So at one point, I've run into this at different points over 25 years, but I brought in a CEO, someone to run my organization. So I could be freed up to focus on, again, that top 20%, what I'm a yes for, which is training other trainers, developing other leaders, um, providing, designing programs and the products to free myself up. The mistake, and here's the more painful lesson, was taking both my hands off the steering wheel of the business. So the CEO is making a lot of decisions, changes, running things that, fast forward a couple of years later, when I took a look back in the business, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's gone awry. Things have gone south. And a mentor of mine. So when this was happening, I went to a mentor of mine, Chip Wilson. He's the founder of Lululemon. He built Lululemon, and I told him what was happening, and he was like, "Oh, you took your hands off the steering wheel." And he leaned into me, looked in my eyes. He said, "Never take both hands off the steering wheel. Always have at least one hand on the steering wheel." And then he even shared experiences of when he had taken both hands off, and you lose the integrity and you can very quickly lose the essence of what makes your product or your business work in the first place. So it's that's kind of the painful lesson, and in there making sure the people that you onboard into your company, whether in a leadership position or at other levels of just administrative or what have you, but everyone's really playing the same game as you. They have the interest of the company and fulfilling the vision that is really at the core of what you're up to and what you're doing.
Awesome. I love
Yeah,
that. Don't take both hands off the steering wheel.
yeah,
The converse of that is doing the corporate salute. It's not my fault. It's marketing's fault.
yeah,
It's product
yeah,
development's fault. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
part of that leadership lesson for me is at the end of the day, I'm 100% responsible for what happens, including taking both hands off the steering wheel. Well, I did that. So I could just blame whoever, that CEO or others, for how things went, but there's no real learning in that failure. And I think, one thing I've had as an entrepreneur is when there are failures, ultimately it always comes back to me, and then I have to uh, this is what I've been able to do is kind of extract the gold from the failure, the learning, the bigger lesson, that I can take that gold and shake off all the rest of it, whatever the drama is or whatever, just shake that off and then bring the gold forward and implement the learning and the lessons in a way that prevents that same failure from happening again.
yeah, so powerful. Baron, what are you most excited about what you're doing today?
I've been working with over the last couple of years with entrepreneurs, business people, and helping them uh, develop their businesses, deal with their bottlenecks, their struggles, whether in culture and in the people front, or developing their leadership teams, developing teams, and again a culture that is thriving, and that really inspires me. And then I'm having fun with my podcast, Disrupt the Drift. My podcast, I just found out last week, is ranked in the top 2% in the world out of like 4 million podcasts. I'm ranked at top 2%. And again, that's without any marketing or advertising. It's just been organic. So I'm having fun with that. And my YouTube channel, which is also
Yeah,
called Disrupt the Drift,
disrupt the drift.
that's
So
getting momentum and just, putting out, again, conversations that make people think bigger, think out of the box, think out of their usual stratosphere.
well, as someone who hosts a podcast, to be where you are is a huge feat, something to be proud of. So congrats, and no doubt it's a result of that you're putting out stuff that people wanna hear and people want to experience. Disrupt the drift.
Yeah.
I love the name, and
Yeah.
I think I know a little bit about what it's about, but just in short, what what is it, and why did you name it Disrupt the Drift? What's it mean?
Yeah, well, my typically my trainings and programs and uh kind of what the offerings out into the world have a disruptive nature. So people walk into a room or a program or a training, they walk in one way, and then after a few days or 5 days, the way that they had been living or operating in the world gets disrupted. And I call that, we're drifting along in life. So I think, generally, typically, if you look at people, if you look at humanity, people are drifting along. People are, cynical, they're resigned, they're living in ways that create disease. They're drifting along. And so I've just seen part of my mission and vision and what lights me up, what I'm a yes for, is disrupting that drift where people are just drifting along. And if they can start distinguishing things or have new print for themselves, to distinguish something, oh, yeah, I've been operating this way, I've been inauthentic, or I've not been living true to what I know to do, and I'm just drifting along. To disrupt that drift is really what inspires me and lights me up. So it's like, that's a perfect name for a podcast.
No,
Disrupt the
on
drift. Yeah.
I love it. Love the work you're putting out. On that topic, or Disrupt the Drift was the perfect name for your podcast. Our podcast is called Coach2Scale. And
I
so
love
we
that
bring,
name, by the way. It's a great name. Yeah.
well, thank you. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in guests that, and we're trying to build a community,
Yeah.
really. And bringing guests is part of that, but we're trying to build a community of people who actually care about coaching and developing others, achieving success in their business through others. Because as you know, as an entrepreneur, you can't do it yourself, right? So how do
Yeah.
you build that community? And usually the people that come onto this program, the people that engage in our community are people who have had that coaching and that great coaching modeled for them somewhere along the way. Who's that
Yeah.
person in your life whose coaching has had an impact on who you are today?
Oh, yeah. That's good. Wow. That's an interesting question. I've had a lot of great mentors in business and in life. I'll tell you where I fundamentally have always gone is into more like biblical principles. They're evergreen, they're everlasting, they're timeless, pulling out
Mm.
wisdom that applies to business and to life. Um, who was it? There was someone I know it's Mark is it Mark Brunette or Mark Brunel? He's a producer. He produced a lot of the big Survivor.
Survivor.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mark
yeah,
Burnett, I think,
yeah,
but
Mark
yeah,
Burnett. Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
he produced, yeah, Trump show, You're Fired, The Apprentice. But I had dinner with Mark Brunette a few months ago, and he said something interesting to me. He said, America was built on the Bible and business. And 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 then I respond saying, well, those two are correlated, aren't they? In a way, because you take those kind of biblical principles and then you create enterprise. And it's off kind of principles, of forgiveness, coming from love, but also coming from excellence and working through the trials, the tribulations, the valley of tears that we all have to go through in building business. But it comes down to elevating people. That's one. And then I've had some amazing coaches, and specifically in business, like Chip Wilson, again, the founder of Lululemon, who's been a really great mentor and friend to me. And he's someone who I watched. I came into Lululemon. They were still somewhat new. They had been around for 5 or 6 years, but he brought me in as a global ambassador. But then also to work with their leadership team. So he would do offsites and for his executive, like C-suite level um, teams, and I would work with them in building team, in building, but code. I would be there right there with Chip in these 3-day immersions, these offsites for executives, and taking his philosophy toward business, his cultural principles, his ways of operating in business. And so he would kind of give me his philosophy about whatever, if it was about building teams or again, taking out the messes amongst teams, because you get passionate leaders and executives, they hit heads, they lock horns, how to address whatever got them stuck in the first place. But like that kind of real-time coaching has been powerful. The last thing I'll say is, working with the Philadelphia Eagles, being around some of the most phenomenal coaches in the world, was I became pretty quickly, once I was in there about a month with the Eagles, and I was like, around these amazing coaches, and I became a student of coaching. And that's really where I started seeing, these NFL coaches working with their athletes. It wasn't, I mean, some of the coaches are more transactional, but the really powerful coaches were relational. Like the athletes, the team players, they really knew that these coaches cared about them, loved them, were there to empower them to win a game and be the best in the world at what they do. But they also then kind of earned the respect to be able to coach these athletes in really, straightforward, hard hitting ways. But the foundation of care and relationship allowed for the coaching that would really make the difference. It opened the athletes up to being open to real critical feedback, real critical, real time direction, that they weren't always, they'd get frustrated and pissed off about. But because they knew there was this foundation of like, this coach really loves me and cares about me, the relationship was there. I would see these athletes just blossom in those exchanges.
Those were the Andy Reid days, right? If I
No, it was right before
or
Andy Reid. I was with
right before.
John Gruden and
Oh, great. Yeah.
oh yeah, some other what's his name? Yeah, I'm blanking on other names, but
Great.
many of those guys went on to become head coaches of teams. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
still are, some of them. Yeah,
I'm a Patriots guy.
yeah.
But
Oh, there
anyway,
you
those
go.
great
Yeah,
franchise,
yeah,
great leaders.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And Chip Wilson. I don't know Chip, but I'm a client.
yeah, yeah,
Lululemon.
right.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
Baron, I think that's a phenomenal place to leave it. I know we covered a lot of ground. We talked about vulnerability and authenticity and the importance of commitment and being a yes and cleaning up the messes and the importance of traveling through the valley of tears. I love that. And don't take both hands off the wheel. So it's just so many powerful
yeah.
messages and so many nuggets. I thank you for bringing all that to us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and congratulations on creating just a great platform for people to learn and grow and become the best at what they do. Yeah, in sales and other places. It's really good.
All right. And hope to see you around the hood in
Yeah.
Park City. And
Yeah.
for everybody out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you like what we're doing, say so by commenting, by engaging. Let us know what you like. And also let us know what you'd like to see more of. What would you like to hear? Our goal is to bring content to you that's interesting and actionable and helps what you do, that what you do every day helps you do it better. So until next time, coach them if you want to keep them. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Coach2Scale, How Modern Leaders Build Coaching Cultures. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at coachem.io. That's COACHEM.io. And follow us on Twitter at CoachemNow. See you all next week. Thanks for joining. And remember, coach them if you want to keep them.